All right, guys, today I want to talk about one of the Patriots' two biggest, weakest positions. We have the cornerback position, is what we're going to be talking about today. The wide receiver position, I would say, is the other second biggest weakness. But for now, I think it is cornerback. We saw games like versus the Texans where we just couldn't even stop anybody. And we've been consistently seeing play like that. But I do have some, I guess, hopeful optimism to go over as well today, and just some thoughts that I have about the position for the Patriots, because really, I don't think it's as bad as it seems, and I think there is some improvement that can happen with our current groups of guys. This does not include bringing anybody else on. So on screen here, I have our Pro Football Focus grades from our top four cornerbacks. And it looks like this. This isn't ranked on their grades. This is ranked on kind of where I think they should really be, because J.C. Jackson is a 65.3. This would put him at the third best cornerback. And I think this is a little bit misleading because of the fact that he's covering the number one wide receiver consistently. So, if he was covering the number two or the number three guy like Juwan Williams or Miles Bryant was, I'm confident he would have a higher grade. Now, number two, so J.C. Jackson, just to close out, I mean, I think he's good. I don't think he's great yet, especially in coverage. I think his ball skills and just his, ball hawking ability in general to just find the ball is elite. Probably top three in the league, if not number one in the league. I mean, he just finds the ball. Let's be real. Obviously, we have that guy in Dallas that is insanely good at that as well. So obviously, that guy is coming onto the scene. But we know J.C. Jackson has consistently done this for a while now, and it hasn't really stopped this year. It has slowed down a little bit, but I think people are kind of looking in other directions a bit. And also, J.C. Jackson having to cover the number one wide receiver. Again, his coverage skills are not elite, so there is guys getting just wide open on him where he can't really make a play on the ball because he's not in position. If this was Stephon Gilmore we were talking about, prime Stephon Gilmore, I'm still not sold that Stephon Gilmore is 100% for the Panthers. Only time will tell, though. But if this was prime Stephon Gilmore, he wouldn't be letting guys get wide open, and that's why we saw such dominance from Stephon Gilmore for about 2 seasons. If J.C. Jackson can develop that coverage skills, because Stephon Gilmore wasn't always like that. I mean, Stephon Gilmore played many seasons with the Bills, and he was nothing like how he was for the Patriots for that just elite coverage run that he went on for about 2 years, or at least 1.5. And I mean, J.C. Jackson can develop those skills. It is quite rare, so I'm not counting on it, but that is possible for guys like this. Now we have next Juwan Williams, a guy who has come onto the scene a little bit this season. He's been on just kind of the roster, just kind of sitting there, not really doing much, kind of a secret for a while now. He's come onto the scene and he's played nicely at times. He's played shaky at times, but especially during the Jets game, I noticed that Juwan Williams was coming in there and he was batting down some passes. He was making some plays, and his coverage skills were quite nice. And he has a 66.1 on the season, which, according to Pro Football Focus, that is considered good. Not great by any means, but that is good. And then Miles Bryant, who we do have a small sample size on, has a 76 straight up grade. I will say this is a bit misleading because of the fact that once we take a look here, I'm going to take a look at the cornerback grades here overall on our team. A lot of his grade actually comes from his pass rushing. He has a 90.7 on pass rushing, and that's because he had I think 2 pass rushes, and both of them went pretty well. So that's why he gets such an elite grade from Pro Football Focus on his pass rushing. Obviously, he's not like Von Miller over here, okay? He's not like, some elite pass rusher. It's 2 pass rushes. They weren't expecting it, and therefore he gets that elite pass rushing grade. His coverage skill straight up is 73.1, so it's decent. I mean, it's very good, but it's not like, a shutdown cornerback. Obviously, we didn't expect that with Miles Bryant anyway, so it's not like, this is a disappointment by any means. It was quite good to see him come off the practice squad, and now I think it's 2 games in a row he's had pretty nice grades so far. So yeah, looking pretty nice overall. Again, coverage grade is going to be a 73.1 overall through 2 games. He did have a few snaps in week 4 and 5. I think 7 pass snaps on week 4, 10 on week 5, and then he had 45 on week 7. And then last week he had 34. So his snaps have gone significantly up once we lost Jonathan Jones. And I think Miles Bryant is a little bit like a Jonathan Jones. He's 5'9". He's not huge. He's 185 pounds. And he seems quite quick. I saw him running around in Sunday's game, and he seems very fast. So he can be a nice Jonathan Jones replacement for now. It's going to be absolutely amazing if Miles Bryant can just be that next undrafted cornerback for us. I think Jonathan Jones was a 7th round pick, but I mean, nearly undrafted. We had obviously the two most popular undrafted cornerbacks we've had in recent history is Malcolm Butler and then now JC Jackson as well. So those two guys are kind of the shining examples of this working out, and it seems pretty classic for the Patriots to do something like this. And honestly, I wouldn't be surprised based on what I've seen from Miles Bryant so far if he ends up being at least semi-good or at least decent. So I think he could come in and develop nicely. So that leaves Jalen Mills, who's really just overall been a disappointment. Week 1, I think he had a really nice deflection where he was burnt and then he made a comeback and was able to bat it away. But ever since then, it's just been kind of downhill. A lot of the touchdowns this season have been on him. And it's been pretty disappointing with Jalen Mills. And I hope he figures it out. Sometimes it does take these free agents a little bit to get to their prime, especially on our defense for some reason. I remember Stephon Gilmore even didn't really, he wasn't the best right away, and he was able to become great. So Jalen Mills is really bad, so maybe he'll be able to become at least okay or good eventually. Obviously, the ceiling, and that's just like a very popular term this year for some reason, talking about player ceiling. But Jalen Mills' ceiling is probably lower than Stephon Gilmore's, obviously. He's a little bit later in his career, obviously, than when we got Stephon Gilmore at almost 28 years old. So there's a little less time. But also, I mean, he's just not as good coming in as Stephon Gilmore was either, obviously. So those two things combined lead me to believe he won't end up being great, but he could end up becoming at least good enough. And that's all we can really hope for at this point. And outside of that, I do want to address the safeties a little bit because that is an interesting position this year as well. And our safeties have been up and down. Adrian Phillips is the 7th-ranked safety, not strong safety, not free safety, but safety in the league right now. I mean, he has been outstanding on every standpoint. Obviously, he's not a bruiser hitter, he's not going to come in there and just destroy guys. So he's not like Kyle Duggar, where he is just a very physical tackler. He's more like a Devin McCourty, not quite as good, but he is more like a Devin McCourty where he plays a lot like a cornerback in zone coverage, but at the safety position. And it's been able to play out very nicely. Obviously, he had the 2 interceptions last week, and even before last week, he has been our best safety on our team so far this season, so that's been nice. And last year, I think we brought him in as a free agent last season, and it wasn't quite as good as it is this year, so it's been nice to see him really step up. Yeah, so last year he had a 66.2 grade, and then this year he has a 77.6. So he's gone up 10% as far as Pro Football Focus is concerned on how good he is. And it's been nice to be able to see that play out that way. It's been very, very nice, actually, and he's developed into a nice player for us. He is 29, almost 30 years old, though. And that's the most disappointing part about it all. But Kyle Duggar's been okay. He has an overall grade of 59.2. He obviously has had a few interceptions. He's been more involved, and I would argue, regardless of what Pro Football Focus is saying, that I think he has been better than last season. He's developed a little bit. He is already almost 26. We brought him in as a very old rookie. So that's also another disappointing thing. There isn't he doesn't have 5 years to develop because he would already be 31. So he kind of needs to be an impact right away, and it hasn't really panned out as well as we would have hoped, but it has been developing nicer, so that's good. Also, Devin McCourty has been kind of declining, I would say. He had in 2019, he had an 80.8 grade, and that's actually his best, one of his best of his entire career. Then in 2020, he had a 65.2 grade overall, and then in 2021 so far he's had a 60.7. So there has, over the past 2 seasons, been a clear decline, I think, in Devin McCourty's career, and at the age of 34, almost 35, next season he'll be 35 if he doesn't retire, which he probably will, to be honest. it's kind of sad to see him declining, but at that age, he deserves to be able to take it easy, and age is catching up, and that's fine. Nobody hates him for it. We've had many good years with Devin McCourty, but I think the priorities, and I'm getting really all over the place with the topics here, but I think the priority for next season, as far as free agency and the draft, needs to be maybe another safety, because we obviously have Kyle Duggar and Adrian Phillips, but Adrian Phillips is already like 30, like I said, but he could be a nice replacement for Devin McCourty. Kyle Duggar could be that strong safety, but the Patriots really do like to play with three safeties, so I think they're going to prioritize bringing on another safety and really figuring out if Kyle Duggar is the immediate and long-term replacement for Patrick Chung or not, because so far he has not lived up to that. He's been a lot more like a Brandon Merriweather, if you will. But I do think that this is a position that needs to be addressed. I also think that they might target a wide receiver, which is a little bit scary as well, because you never know how those are going to go. But N'Keal Harry has been kind of making himself known. I will say that I'm kind of buying into the hype a little bit that N'Keal Harry is becoming not terrible. He's more like okay right now. So he has taken a leap for sure. There's a long way to go for him to be worth that first round pick. It would take a complete U-turn in his career, but hey, here's to hoping it maybe could happen. And then I also think cornerbacks. I think right now, safety, cornerback, wide receiver, priority next season. Anyway, let me know if you agree with that down below. Also, be sure to like the video. And as always, subscribe for the best Patriots content on YouTube. I'll see you guys in the next video.